So coming into the 2013 A-level, question number 3. Explain how the law of diminishing returns and the law of returns to scale affect the firm's cost of production. Yes, do you see the first part of this was repeated in the 2012 paper? How the law of diminishing returns affect the cost of production? Yes, that is what the question was. In the 2012 paper, they asked you what is law of diminishing returns and what does it imply about the short run cost curve. Same thing they are asking here, but what did they do? In addition to talking about the short run, this time they're asking about the long run also. So this part of the part I'm not going to explain again. So you can start off your answer by saying, law of diminishing returns means this, right. This is how the short run cost is affected. So how is the short run cost affected? Right? How does it affect the cost of production? You can say, when MP is increasing, MC is decreasing. When this is decreasing, this is increasing. All of this was in the 2012 paper. Then how do you explain the other one? Law of returns to scale. How does that? You don't have to draw a graph, guys. It's only a 4-mark question. You have more than enough to draw. You don't have to draw. So we'll talk about this. How does the law of returns to scale affect a firm's cost of production? What can you tell about this? The law of returns to scale and the cost of production. What can you say? So you can say, according to the law of returns to scale, what happens, right? Say that this is in the long run. Say that here what happens, the firm expands, or in other words, you say that there is an increase in the plant size. Okay, it expands its capacity. You can talk about that. As a result of this, what happens? What happens, guys? Initially, the long run average cost will decrease. That is when you have economies of scale, right? So you can say that law of return scale leads to economies of scale. You can talk about this. You can say initially the long run average cost will decrease. This is what you call economies of scale. Okay, and then it will be constant, right? Where the long run average cost will be constant, right? That is what you call constant economies of scale. Yes, you can talk about these economies also. Then you can say after a certain point, if you expand even more, what happens? The long run average cost will start to increase, right? What is that? What is this called, guys? The long run average cost starting to increase is called what? That's called what? That's called diseconomies of scale. So you can talk about these scales. This is what you have to talk about when you talk about in the long run. So you say the law of return to scale talks about this. It's the talks about the output in the long run, and in the long run the firm will expand, or in other words, it will increase its plant size. So when that happens, initially the long run average cost will decrease because of economies of scale. Then after a certain point it will remain constant, and if you increase even more, the long run average cost will increase. Remember, guys, I'm hoping you all remember the diagram, right? The long run average cost goes like that. Here you have economies of scale, here you have constant economies of scale, and here you have diseconomies of scale. Hope you all remember the long run average cost curve. Is that okay? This one you write the same thing what you all did for the will I upload the recording on YouTube? Yes, guys, I have uploaded all the recordings up to now on YouTube. Okay, don't be very lost in the class. Okay, I will upload, but I can't guarantee a date. When I find some time, I will upload. Now, last week's class, I uploaded last night, on that day night itself, because I had some free time. When I have some free time, I will definitely upload. Right, so usually within a week I upload. Sometimes can take 2 weeks. Sometimes on the same day I will upload. That depends on my schedule. But your thing has to be to somehow come to class. Okay, right. So far for the last, I think 4 3-4 months, all classes that we did is there on YouTube, right? You can go and watch if you have missed. Okay. Is that fine, guys? Can you all handle this question? Yes. Can handle law of diminishing returns and law of returns to scale. Questions, problems. Okay. Right. Then we'll move to the next. Interesting question. Discuss whether there is a relationship between the marginal cost curve and the supply curve of the industry. Now remember, guys, we say, do you all remember that the marginal cost curve above the average variable cost is the supply curve of the firm? Here they are not saying that. Here they are saying, is there a relationship between the marginal cost and the supply curve of the industry? How are you going to explain this, guys? First, you explain the connection between marginal cost and the supply curve of the firm. Then say the addition of all of this is the supply curve of the industry. Okay. So how are you going to explain this? If you want, you can draw a small diagram, guys. Now, for the right. Now, remember, this is the marginal cost curve. This one is the average variable cost. The marginal cost curve above the average variable, this green part, right? The MC curve above the average variable cost curve is what you call what? Is what you call the supply curve of a firm. Supply curve of a firm. Right now, how does this happen? Remember, guys, in our theory parts we learned. Now, these are a combination of unit number 1, 2, 3, and all of it, right? So the minimum that a supplier or a producer expects is to cover his variable cost, right? So remember, guys, the addition of all marginal costs is equal to the variable cost. Did you understand that point? When we did MCQs, we looked at it. If you add all the marginal costs, you get the total variable cost. You'll remember that. And I'll give you all some time. Take some time to think. Go through the questions, the calculation that we did, right? The point that I'm saying is the addition of all marginal costs will equal to the total variable cost, right? So this is something for you to think at home, right? Think at home. How does this happen? I would have kind of shown this to you when we did calculation. This is for you to think at home. Okay? Right. Then, if you look at this, okay, what are we talking about? We're talking about if there is a relationship between the marginal cost curve and the supply curve of the industry. The first thing that you have to prove and say that you need to say, look here, the marginal cost curve above the minimum average variable cost curve is the supply curve of a firm. Why is that? For that, you can say below the average variable cost, a firm would shut down because there is no point continuing. So a firm will only continue as long as they can cover their minimum AVC. That's why it's above that point. And then you can say the minimum a firm expects to cover is what? The minimum a firm expects to cover is its marginal cost. In other words, its variable cost. So therefore, this part, guys, this is the minimum expectation of the producer. That becomes the supply curve. Right? In your words, based on whatever that you have in your theory notes and all, guys, this we did a direct proper explanation of this in the fast track class last week, if you all came. Okay. And in the doubt clearing session also, I did clarify this in detail, which was also a free session for all of you all to attend last Saturday. And then you can say the addition of all of these. Now, this is the supply curve of one firm. No? Then you can say an industry is made of, so many firms. So when you sum up the marginal cost curve above the AVC for all the firms, then you get what? The industry supply curve. The industry supply curve will look like this, guys. We will have a line like this, and then it will go like this. This is how the industry supply curve is going to look like. Yes, how come? Now, the firm supply curve is like, oops, sorry, I'm just trying to, okay. The firm supply curve is just a straight line like this, right? The firm's supply curve is a line like this. But how is the industry supply curve like this? How does that work, guys? Just practically think, right? Think now, for example, let's say this is the price of 10. At the price of 10, let's say this firm, where did my line go? Okay. At the price of 10, this firm is willing to supply, let's say, 10 units. Then likewise, there are so many firms. Another firm is going to supply 5. Another firm is going to supply something. So if you take the entire industry at the price of 10, some firms 5, some firms 10, some firms 15, right? There is a whole thing there. And then, so it doesn't have to be 5, 10, 15. This can even be 100, 200, 300, right? And then when the price goes up, there is a supply. Remember, the industry supply curve is the addition of all the individual supply curves. What is the individual supply curve? The marginal cost curve above the minimum AVC. So if you add all of this up, you end up with this. Is that clear, guys? Can you all write an explanation on your own words? You can refer to the past paper answer, you can refer to your notes, but come up with an answer on your own. This can be a question that can show up in your paper as well. It's a good question. Put a star and fine. It's perfectly elastic initially because at the price of 10, right, you will have, okay, now just think, guys. Now, this is one firm's supply, right? Now, for example, let's say this firm at the price of 10, they are supplying 10 units, okay? Then let's say there is another firm, right? There is another firm, let's say they are at the price of 10, they are supplying, let's say 5 units. Let's say there is another firm, right? MC is this, okay? They at the price of 10, they are willing to supply 20 units, right? So you add all of that, then you get the industry supply curve. So at the price of 10, there could be, some firms, right? You can buy 100 units, 200 units, 300 units. They are willing to supply any amount of these. You add all of this. You add this 10, you add this 5, you add this 20, right? And you get these numbers. After the price of 10, only it goes up. Okay. So once again, to repeat, guys, these are theory part, right? Which will be the case. If you all have your notes, right? If you were in one of my class, if you have the note, go to, if you have like, I can't say a page number, but go to the part where we talk about this. This one here, the short run supply curve and the marginal cost curve, the relationship, right? So I have the small explanation and I have drawn the diagram and I have explained. If you can't remember, at least go back to that recording and see how does that work. And then, guys, once again, the industry supply curve is what? The industry supply curve is the addition of all the firm supply curves. No, now this part here is the firm supply curve. This is the firm. This is the firm supply curve. This is the firm supply curve. So when you add all these pink lines, you then end up with this dark green line. That is the industry's supply curve. Okay, so take some time and go through it, guys. It's not that hard. Is that okay? Fine. Now, moving to the next. Right. This one is an interesting question again. Okay. Explain why a firm under perfect competition has a horizontal demand curve, but the industry faces a downward slope. First part is easy. What can you say? Why is the firm facing a horizontal demand curve. Why is the firm facing a horizontal demand curve? The firm is facing a horizontal demand curve because it is a price taker. Why is it a price taker? What are the three reasons? One is it's selling a homogeneous product, right? There are large number of firms, or you can also rewrite this and say one firm supplies only a small portion from the total amount of this thing, and also there is perfect information. So because of these reasons, what happens? Because of these reasons, the firm is a price taker. As a result of being a price taker, what do you get? You have a perfectly elastic demand curve. And what does that mean? That means what? The firm can sell any reasonable quantity at the prevailing market price. They can sell any quantity at the prevailing market price. Then guys, why does the industry have a downward sloping demand curve? Why is that? Now, is the industry itself a perfect substitute to another industry? Or let's say the rice market, is the rice market a perfect substitute to another market? No, right? One firm is a perfect substitute to another firm. One rice farmer and another rice farmer are perfect substitutes, correct? But if you take the entire rice market or the rice industry, is that a perfect substitute to another industry? No, right? So because of that reason, they are a price maker. So you can say the industry itself, right, itself is not a perfect substitute to another industry. Yeah. So as a result, the industry, or you can say the market, right, the industry is a price maker. You don't even have to say price maker, right? Other industry, you can say, okay, industry is a price maker, no problem. Okay. If you take the industry as a whole, they're a price maker, but one person can't set the price. Okay. So this would result in what, guys? This would result in a downward sloping demand curve. Other points why industry is a price maker. So these are the things, right? Because the industry is not a perfect substitute for another industry. Because of that reason, the industry becomes a price maker. Is that okay? Fine. And giving a basic explanation and right now. Then we'll go to the next. Okay, this one again we did in the fast track on Tuesday, which most of y'all did come. Right? A firm operating in the short run period reports that its revenue is 100 million. Total cost is 120. Is the firm making a profit or a loss? Revenue is 100, cost is 120. Are they making a profit or a loss? Revenue is 100, cost is 120. They are making a loss. Okay. So given that they are making a loss, now what should they do? They should decide, should they stay in production or should they shut down? So they are asking you, and the fixed cost is 40 million. Should the firm stay in business? Why? Okay. Can you all do the calculation for me? We did this last Tuesday, right? If they stay in business, how much is their loss or how much is their profit or loss? If they stay in business, total revenue is 100 million. Okay. Total cost is 120 million. Okay. If there is no A, B, C here, there is a total variable cost, right? So then if they stay in business, they will make a loss of how much? They will make a loss of 20 million, right? What if they shut down? If they shut down, how much will their total revenue be, guys? If they shut down, how much is their total revenue? Total revenue is 0. Okay. How much is their total cost? Is their total cost also 0? This is the point that you need to know. If you shut down, remember, when you shut down, what is shutting down? Shutting down is a temporary closure. No, remember I explained this last week. So when you shut down, you can avoid your variable cost. But can you avoid your fixed cost? No. Now, just because you have temporarily closed your shop, can you say, no, I'm not paying rent, I'm not paying interest on loans, I'm not paying insurance? No, right? You can't say that. You have to pay. Those are your fixed costs. So how much is your total cost if you shut down? How much is that? Think, guys, in the calculation, tell me how much is the fixed cost. Total cost is 120, fixed cost is 40. So you have to incur that 40 million, right? So if you shut down, how much of a loss will you be making then? If you shut down, you will be making a loss of 40 million, right? If you stay in business, you make a loss of only 20 million. So which one is better? Which one's better? It's better to stay, right? Yes, if you shut down, total revenue is 0, right? What is shutting down? Shutting down is your temporary close. So if you close, where are you going to earn money? There is no revenue coming if you close, right? So total revenue is 0. Okay, so which one is better? Continuing is better. So that is what you need to explain, guys. So you need to put this into a paragraph. Why is FC 40? Because it's given in the question. Total fixed cost is 40. Okay. Right. So should the firm stay in the business? Yes. So you can say the firm, if the firm continues in production, it will face a loss of 20 million. If the firm shuts down, right? If the firm shuts down, it would make a loss of 40 million. So which one is better? The firm should stay in the business because the loss there is minimized. And also further you can go and say, because in this instance, right, the total revenue is greater than the total variable cost. That total variable cost is 80 million. Remember, I explained this on Tuesday. We did numerical examples on the fast active. Yeah. So because they are covering their total variable cost, can you see? Staying in production is better. But if they shut down, they make an even bigger loss. Yeah, so as long as you can cover your variable cost, you should stay in production. If you can't cover that only, you should leave. Now, for example, in this same question, if I change this question and if I say total fixed cost is 10 million, right? Now tell me what would happen. So same question, I just changed this number. Total fixed cost 40 million, I made it 10 million. So then see, my stay in the business loss will be 20, it is the same thing. No difference, no total revenue, total cost. Then my total revenue will be 0. How much will my total cost be if I shut down? My total cost would be only the 10 million fixed cost. So then my loss would be only 10 million. Then which one is better? Then shutting down is better. Then see, in that instance, how much is my variable cost? If this fixed cost is 10 million, how much is my variable cost? Then my variable cost is 110, no? Because this is 120, no? My variable cost is 110. See, my revenue is not even enough to cover my variable cost. Then I should shut down. But if my revenue is enough to cover my variable cost, then I should go and produce. If both are equal, let's say in this also loss is 20, if this also loss is 20. So then it's up to the firm, right? Either they shut down or if they stay, they get the same output, they get the same result. So if they want, they can continue. If they want, they can shut down. That's up to them to decide. Okay, both are equal. Is that okay? Right. So in this question, the firm should stay in production. Yes, sir. TVC is less than TR, therefore you should continue fine, but then you should stay. Now, because the total variable cost is less than the total revenue, you have to do this calculation and show. Right now, this is the explanation. Now remember we say as long as you can cover your variable cost, right? As long as you can cover your variable cost, you will continue production. Why is that? Why do you stay in production as long as you can cover your variable cost? That explanation only is this numbers, guys. See, in this firm, their total revenue is greater than their total variable cost. They can cover their variable cost. So therefore, if they stay in the business, they make a loss of 20. Given that they can cover their variable cost, if they shut down, they make a loss of 40. So this explanation is needed, guys. You can't just say because they are covering their total variable cost, they should stay. No, you should prove it, right? You should prove and say, look here, given that they are covering, if they stay, this is the loss. If they shut down, this is the loss. So therefore, staying is better. Okay, you need to go a little bit more in detail. Right. Last one. Why is the equality of marginal revenue and marginal cost essential for profit maximization in all market structures? Explain why price can be substituted for marginal revenue in the MR equals MC rule when the firm is a perfectly competitive industry. Okay. So, first of all, why is MR equals MC the profit maximizing quantity? Now, this I did explain this last week, all 3 classes in the on Tuesday, on Thursday, again on doubt clearing session also I would have explained. So remember, when MR is greater than MC, what happens? When marginal revenue is greater than your marginal cost, what does that mean? That means each additional unit contributes positively to the profit. In other words, if you increase your output, right? In other words, if the firm increases output, what happens? Output, the profit will increase. Do you all understand that point, guys? When MR is greater than MC, what is marginal revenue? Marginal revenue is the additional revenue you get by selling a unit. Now, for example, let's say I take my fast track class as an example. The marginal revenue is 4,000. That's the price that I charge from you. Okay. So let's say for each additional student that joins, I spend an additional, I receive additional revenue of 4,000 and my marginal cost. So I have a tute printing cost, packaging that, sending that, clearing your doubts, right? All of that. Let's say I have a cost of 2,500. So for each additional student, I'm getting a profit of, let's say, 1,500. So as a result, what should I do? If I want to maximize my profits, because my marginal revenue was 4,000, my marginal cost was only 2,500. If I want to get the highest possible profit, what should I do? I should increase my output. Yeah. And then when MR is lesser, when your marginal revenue is less than your marginal cost, then what happens? Each additional unit contributes negatively to the profit. Now, just think, let's say currently I have 100 students. Okay. Let's say I have 100 participant Zoom account. If I have 101 students, then I have to get a bigger Zoom account, which will increase my cost like nothing. So then one more student comes, marginal revenue is 4,000. But the marginal cost of teaching that student, because of that student, I have to now get a bigger Zoom package. Let's say get my second admin, right? Cost is too much. Cost is 8,000. Is it worth it for me to go and get that new student? No, right? Is it worth it for me to increase my output? No. So when marginal revenue is less than marginal cost, each additional unit will contribute negatively. So if the firm increases output, what happens? The profits will decrease then. So where is the profit maximized? Remember, if you draw the diagram, right, this is MR, this is MC. So this is the initial stage, right? This is the initial stage where MR is greater, right? In this initial stage, marginal revenue is greater. Then the next stage is this, the green one. The green one is where, I'll put this in orange, right? The orange one, where the marginal cost is greater. Now in this stage, the marginal cost is greater. So when marginal revenue is greater, you should expand output. When marginal cost is greater, you should decrease your output. And the point where marginal revenue and marginal cost are equal, that is where your profit is maximized. Because here, now, if you're in the blue area, to maximize your profit, you will increase the output. If you are in the orange area, to maximize your profit, you will decrease output. And when you come to the right exact point where MR equals MC, your profit is maximized. That part you should know by now, which is a very common part, which we have discussed in so many classes already in theory and everything. Is that fine? Step, questions, problems, issues? Then the next part is asking, explain why price can be substituted for marginal revenue in what? Explain why price can be substituted for marginal revenue in the MR equals MC rule when a firm is operating in a perfectly competitive industry. Why is that? You can say a firm in a perfectly competitive industry is a price taker. As a result, what happens? As a result, they have a perfectly elastic demand curve. What does that mean? That means they can sell any number of units, okay, any number of units at the prevailing price. So then every time they increase their let's say they increase output by 1 unit, the price that they get will equal to their marginal revenue. So that is what happens, guys. So talk about the firm having a perfectly elastic demand curve because they're a price taker. As a result, every time they increase their output by 1. Now remember, guys, now when it's a downward sloping demand curve, that is not the same, right? The marginal revenue and marginal revenue, right? Now in a downward sloping, now this is not in our syllabus, right? I'll just show you this, okay? So in a downward sloping demand curve, it's like this guy. Now in a perfectly competitive firm, how is it? It's like this, no, here. This is price equals demand equals average revenue equals marginal revenue. Okay. In a downward sloping demand, not in your syllabus, don't worry, right? This is your demand curve, which is also equal to your marginal, also equal to your average revenue curve. This is your right from the middle that goes is your marginal revenue, right? This is your MR curve. And then you have your price set at each place. Okay. So for a downward sloping, this marginal revenue, average revenue is not the same. I did explain this a little, I think, in the in one class. I can't remember where. I think in a doubt clearing session or somewhere. Okay. So that is why they asked this question in the first place. The price and MR is not always the same in the other firms. But if you take a perfectly competitive firm, because they are a price taker, because they have this perfectly elastic demand curve like this, therefore price can be substituted. Is that okay? Can you all take some time and come up with a nice answer for that? Step. Yes, no? Question? Yes, I all okay? Fine. Others? Okay. Yes, take some time. I don't have so much of time to go into very basics and explain word by word. I'm guessing in your theory class or whatever you all would have learned those, right? That's why I just recap it a little. Okay, so don't get me wrong there. Okay, so if that is the case, that is the end of the 2013 paper, which is a little bit of a tough paper to do. Okay, so here the questions were not that easy, I will agree. So given that 2013 was a very tough paper, the good news is you don't have a unit number 4 question in the 2014 paper. You directly go to 2015 then, right? Let me end.